Hi, everyone. Sue Crab tells me that I can just start talking and eventually everybody will quiet down. So I'm Barb Hiltz. I'm the director of the MSW program, and I want to welcome you to this foodless town hall. Food was supposed to be delivered at 5. I've called, and it is apparently supposed to be here, so hopefully it will be here soon. But I thought we would just get started, and then when food arrives, we can get it set up and just take a little break for folks to get it, and then we'll carry on. Does that sound okay? Okay. All right, good. I don't want to waste your time. So I'm not going to be talking much today. There's other people who are going to be presenting things. I wanted just to point out that there's a few other members of your administrative team who are here. Dean Videka is here. She's waving at this middle table. Yep. Lorraine Gutierrez, who heads our Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, is up here. Dan Fisher is standing by the wall back here. He's over our Office of Field Education. And Tim Collenbeck is somewhere, not in the room yet. He's getting pizza. He's standing by the door, ready to whisk it in. Mary Ruffalo is at the back of the room. Oh, here he comes with a down the hall. We're going to smell it soon, and then we'll have to break. So Tim is over our Office of Student Services. Some of you have already had some to do with him. There are also a couple of members of your student union here. Will you stand up if you are here? All right, good. Christina and Gabby. Yep, and she is going to have a few things to say to us later today, but I wanted to make sure that you saw their faces as well. As we go through today, if you have something to say, there are mics that are getting put in the middle of your tables. They need to be green, and you need to be using them, even if you have a voice like mine where you think you don't need to use them. We're recording tonight's session, so people are watching now as it streams, and we're also recording it so people who aren't available at this time can watch it later. All of our previous town halls are also recorded and archived for you, so if you're a new student and you want to go back and watch something from last year's town hall, you're able to do that as well. So as they're setting up back there, I just by way of introduction wanted to say a couple of things about town halls. How many of you are first year here for the first time students? Wow, welcome. That's a really good amount. So we started doing town halls last year for a couple of reasons. One was we were told by students that you had no idea what was happening behind the curtain, right? So we would ask you questions all the time and solicit your feedback on things, and then we would go back behind the curtain and start working on things and never come back and tell students, this is what we think we heard from you. These are some of the things that we're planning, get more feedback from you about how that's working or not working for you. So this year we instituted several things to try to lift that curtain a little bit. The dean is available with some meeting times to meet with you. We've done a few other kind of drop-in times, and then these town halls are another way that we've tried to do that. So it's a chance for us to tell you what we think we heard, get your feedback about it, and then also just answer any questions that you have about how things work. So that's the purpose of coming together today. We generally try to have a few topics where we present a little bit to you, but then leave a lot of time for you to ask questions. And your questions can be about the things we presented on, but really they could be about any questions that you have about the school, and we try to have a bunch of our team here so that we can answer different types of questions that folks have. So today we're going to focus on an update from Dr. Gutierrez about our efforts around diversity, equity, and inclusion, the strategic plan, where we've come, where we're going, and also ways that you all can get involved with that work. I've just started looking at the new student survey data. So all of you who just raised your hands, took a survey about what you thought about orientation. So I thought I would just present a little bit of that as we start to look at the numbers about orientation data. Shia from your student union is going to come up and talk about a couple of efforts, Unite for Social Change, and some things we're doing around lunches. And then we've got a representative, Haley, will you wave, who's going to come up and talk about, she's our rep to Central Student Government. And then again, we'll take questions throughout and take questions at the end. Does that sound like an okay agenda for today? Okay, all right. So I will sit down and you can come up. You want to eat first? All right, it's ready? Okay, great. We'll take a few minutes to go get food.
It is, yeah. Yeah. Where did you see the bike? Yeah. Like they do. If there's a university, I just
So sorry.
I almost went log onto Blue Jeans just to see what the people in the chat are. Just hold on. Matt, I only like feel like your given name, and so every time I hear, yeah, yeah, thinking, since you like a human name, Janet. So I said,
So we're going to get started with the town hall and with our presentations. So I know some people are still picking up food, but I think most of them are actually staff. So there are a few students up there as well. But I want to get started so we'll have enough time. Our format tonight is to do some brief presentations and then open up for questions or discussion or feedback or anything, so we're not just up here talking at you the whole time. We want to also get your feedback. So my name is Lorraine Gutierrez. I'm the director of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Office at the School of Social Work, and I'm a member of the faculty. I'm also a U of M alum from the PhD program here in social work and psychology, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. I've also devoted a lot of my teaching and research and just energy toward diversity, equity, and inclusion throughout my career. So I felt like having this office was a real opportunity to then take it further into thinking about ways we can transform and make our school a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive environment. But I want to spend some time explaining to you sort of like what we're doing and what we're trying to do and what we hope to do and maybe ways you can help us work toward these goals. We live in a really challenging time and place currently in our society. As a person who's been around for a while, I've lived through other very challenging times. Some of which felt just as challenging to me as this time does. But of course, most people in the school, they haven't been around long enough to have experienced other extremely challenging times as well. And so this is your first go-round for something like this. And these challenging times are not the times to go into a little hidey hole and say, I can't deal with it. Especially if you've decided to become a social worker. Because when you decide to be a social worker, you decide to get involved. You decide to do something at whatever level it is that you want to be involved and at whatever level it is you want to make a difference. So I also want to acknowledge that the University of Michigan and Southeast Michigan, just as a region, is not always an easy place for those of us who are not well represented in institutions like the U of M or in cities like Ann Arbor, which is a relatively affluent community and predominantly white. And even though we're a school and a field, we have a dedication to diversity, equity, and inclusion and social justice for people with a number of different identities. We often don't get it right. We often make mistakes. We are all in a growth circle. What I say to the faculty and the staff, and I will say to all the students, is that when it comes to this work, we all have things to contribute and we all have things to learn. Every day there are more things to learn about diversity, equity, and inclusion. No one is ever at a point where they have completed the journey. There may be a point where you might hand off things to others who are coming up or put your energy into paying it forward. But there's not going to be a time and place when there isn't work to do. And you're in the school, hopefully, and in your lives in general, equipping yourselves to deal with that. So I want to acknowledge that there are people in our school, in this room, who have already this school year experienced what has been described as hurt and frustrations and are feeling very maybe challenged and upset by experiences they may have had in courses or with other students or on the campus, or in the city of Ann Arbor, where people might say, where are you from when you were born in the U.S.? Or maybe it's just like none of their business to ask you questions like that. I've had questions like that directed to me. I always say Los Angeles because that's where I was born, but that's not really what they're asking usually. And that, but we as a community are also are working to try to address these things. But we will always have bumps along the road, but I do want to acknowledge the feelings and the experiences that people may have already had, and I'm hoping that this is early enough in the semester where we can intervene and get involved in doing something about those situations. So what do we mean by diversity, equity, and inclusion? So we're part of a larger initiative at the University of Michigan that started in about 2015, 2016, when President Schlissel said he was going to put a lot of effort into transforming the University of Michigan as a whole into a place that was really trying to address these issues. And so the School of Social Work office is part of a larger effort across campus. And but each unit, including our school, has their own plan that is tailored to whatever the strengths and the concerns and the needs are in that particular unit. So like the library has their plan, and the university hospitals have their plan, and the School of Ed that we're connected to has their plan, and they're all separate, but we're all working toward the bigger plan. And it is a 5-year plan, and we are now entering year 3 of that plan. So when our school got together to come up with a plan, first we had to define what we as a school meant by diversity. And so I've listed here the different kinds of social identities that we in our plan say we are concerned about. Race, ethnicity, age, class, color, culture, disability and ability, gender, gender identity and expression, immigration status, marital status, physical appearance, height, weight, veteran status, political ideology, national origin, religion/spirituality, and I would add, or the absence of, those who are non-believers, sex, sexual orientation and or identity, socioeconomic status, tribal sovereign status, and other important identities in particular contexts and environments. And this list actually comes from is very close to the list that the National Association of Social Workers identifies as the list of different identities and communities that we as social workers need to be aware of, need to understand, and need to advocate for. In terms of equity, really our focus is on policies to support equal opportunity for all persons and to not discriminate based on different social identities. And then inclusion is making deliberate efforts to ensure that differences are welcomed, different perspectives are heard, and every individual feels a sense of belonging and inclusion and contribute to our community. So this is a very lofty goal. It's not easy. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. We've been working on it for 2 years. We've made a lot of progress, but we're certainly not at the end of it. And we are not going to necessarily be at the end of it at the end of the 5-year plan. So even though the university is saying, oh, everyone just needs to work on this for 5 years, I know that the School of Social Work is not just going to say, okay, 5 years or older, now we're going to have a different plan. We're going to continue to move forward. I'm not going to read this whole thing out loud to you. I think we're sharing slides, and there's going to be, of course, online as well. But why should we, particularly as social workers, care about this? So I have here just from the NASW board ethical standards about the role of social workers, which is to promote social justice and social change with and on behalf of clients, defining clients as being a system from an individual to a community to a nation. So we say client, we don't just mean one person. An organization can be a client. I'm doing macro social work in the School of Social Work, and my client is the School of Social Work. So it's really thinking of and understanding that client is a broad and inclusive term, identify some of the activities that can be involved, which includes things like research and evaluation, education, and that the focus is also on enhancing the client and people's to address their own needs. And that's embedded in our strategy. We don't have an office that's going to fix everything for everybody. We're in an office that's going to work in partnership with everyone who's here to try to address the concerns we have, because that's the only way we can develop capacity in the other people here and the other offices here. So I'm going to just backtrack a little to our planning process. Our planning process for our plan in 2016 was very, very inclusive. There was a committee made up of pretty much equal numbers of faculty, social work students, and staff members who met over a 6-month period and met often and for many hours to collect information and data about the different diversity, equity, inclusion concerns in the school. So they looked, this is just a list of things they did. They looked at existing data on the climate, our admissions policies and outcomes, course evaluation data, things like that. They went to different campus events and actually wrote up little participant observation logs of what they observed that related to DE&I. They did separate focus groups for groups of students and staff and faculty, and had community forums where they brought people together and had them working around the table and identify issues. There was an online student survey about DE&I, and then we had open meetings for everyone in the school to come and actually develop the plan, to come up with ideas to develop the plan. I was not on the planning committee, but I was actively involved in the school-wide meetings to develop the plan. And so the plan really has in it the voices of students. These are students who have now, for the most part, I think all of them have graduated, including the one PhD student who was on the committee. She is now graduated with her PhD. So the students who worked on this are probably not still in the school, but many of the faculty and probably most of the staff who worked on it are here as well, and still here as well. And you can look, if you look on the website for the DE&I office, if you're really interested in this, you can see the names of the people who worked on it, what their different roles were, and how they contributed. So it was really a ground-up, bottom-up plan. It was not, we brought in a consultant who talked to a few people and wrote something up. We really were deeply engaged. So our process of implementation is to have a DEI office that has myself, Lauren Davis, who's a graduate of the school, worked for OSS for many years and has an MSW, is licensed, and is working full-time in the office. And then we currently have 4 student employees, and we do have a field placement possibility if anyone thinks they might want to do this for their field placement. We had a field student last year, and she, I think, could, if you wanted to talk to her, she would tell you that she had a very good experience in the field placement. But so we have student employees, and the intern hopefully will get another one. And what we do is coordinate with all of these other offices and other groups in the School of Social Work and on campus and in the larger community. So we are seen as a catalyst and a resource for doing this work. We're a catalyst because if we think something needs to get done, Lauren or I will go talk to the people who are in charge of whatever that thing might be. If we're concerned about admissions, we'll talk to Mary and Tim. If we're concerned about student advising, we'll talk to MSW student advising, we'll talk to Barb and Mary. If we're concerned about what's going on with faculty research, we'll go talk to Rogerio. So our role is to go talk with these people, figure out ways we can partner on moving the program forward and increasing diversity and equity inclusion on these things and working with them. And that's a way then for this to be integrated and infused throughout what's going on in the school, not just have an office that's there and everything gets sent there. But often we might hear about something that other people haven't heard, and we can get the process started. So this is a sort of a summary of our strategic objectives. We actually have 24 strategic objectives, and that's like a whole lot. So I didn't put all of them up here. And then for each strategic objective, there are 2 to 5 action steps of specific things we're going to do. So you'll see here that we have objectives that relate to students, increasing diversity of our student body, providing more support for students, supporting PODS learning, faculty, objectives that relate to faculty, increase the diversity of the faculty, improve hiring promotion practices, to bring in more faculty who are able to teach well around D&I issues, create accountability mechanisms with faculty so that if things are not going as they should, there's ways to make people accountable and to help them develop in their skills, and increasing the cultural humility of faculty. And then we have objectives for staff. Now, staff are people who work here, but they're not faculty members. So they're folks like Tim and like Nishorn and the people who sit at the front desks, and the people who are making appointments for people, and the people who are working on the budgets of the school to make sure everything's going right, and the people who fix things or get someone to come and fix the elevator. So people who are in the staff, it's like a wide range of jobs that folks have when they're staff. And they're really essential to the experience. They're the ones, I feel like they're the ones who really often do the most work. They do certainly more work probably than I do in some ways. And they're the ones who get things done, actually get things done when something really, really, really needs to get done right away. And so they're very essential, but many of them are not social workers. They don't know anything about social work. They've never studied social work. They may not have gone to college. But they are really interested in understanding social work now, and that's something we found out, was that they like to know more about social work, at least know more about what it is and what our students are learning and what they're doing, and that's something we've been working on. This is a chart I don't expect anyone to be able to read from like far away, but this is our progress on our many, many objectives. And so if the line is longer, it means that we've almost achieved it or have achieved it. So just to point out a few things, the one at the top is increasing the diversity of the full-time faculty, and we've actually met our mark for that every year, and we plan to do that in the future. We have one of the most racially and ethnically diverse faculties at a school of social work in the United States. We need more, and we're not done, and we're working toward more and making that better. But we do, especially when you look at many, many of the other schools, including schools where I have worked and schools where I went to school as well, where I got my master's. Another one that's high up on the list is students' ability to participate and lead in and respond to transformational conversations where they're really learning a lot about DEI issues. Providing more holistic support for students, that's something we've been working on, and I think we're getting better. There's a lot more to do with that. And then some of the things we need to really focus on more is more consistent and supportive faculty advising. That's something that I just had a meeting about today, and we're continuing to work on and thinking of ways, and we've really made some good efforts toward that. But there's more that we can do because students do need good advising. And also increasing the diversity of staff is actually one on the bottom. That's something that has improved but we can be doing better on, and we're going to work on that. Increasing diversity of the student body is on here, and it is toward the top, but it's not as high as increasing the diversity of the faculty. And so that is something that we are continuing to work on, and we're doing a lot more outreach to different places and also support for people when they're thinking about applying. So I wanted to pull out this one objective because, especially in response to the concerns that went out on the email this week about faculty training and development around learning about racism, and the petition to require all faculty to take the Undoing Racism workshop. So I wanted to share this with you because faculty development around teaching around diversity, social justice, equity, and inclusion has many elements to it. So attending workshops is important, but it's not the only thing that's going to make the difference for people. People have to make commitments to this and realize that they need to engage in a process of lifelong learning. There are some people in the United States who would consider me an expert on this stuff, but I'm learning every day, and I'm learning more and more things. And I don't think I'm ever going to be at a place where I can say, oh, I don't need to read any more articles about that, or I don't need to learn about these different organizations that are doing work. It's an ongoing process. So I put this together of the training is important. We've done, half of our full-time faculty attended the Undoing Racism workshop that took place in May. We've since hired even more faculty who weren't around even to take it. So we are going to do, the meeting I was in today, we committed, and we had already been planning to do a follow-up workshop for the people who went, because one workshop is never enough, and to offer a new workshop later this semester for people who didn't have the opportunity to go. We've also done other workshops like on inclusive teaching methods, how to bring current events into the classroom, how to facilitate discussions around hot topics, things like that. So we are continuing to offer training sessions. This summer we had a PODS intensive training for faculty members who wanted to learn more about how to integrate PODS into their teaching, where people actually brought in their course outlines and went through and analyzed them and got a lot of consultation from people who know a lot about this stuff. And they're continuing to communicate with them and doing check-ins with them about how things are going. Another piece of this is a monthly meeting that that I know Barb is involved in with the MSW program, which is for anyone who's teaching, whether they're full or part-time faculty, to either call in or come in and talk about how their teaching is going. Are they running into any problems? Are there things they'd like to get? It's sort of like a peer supervision kind of model, I would say, for people who are teaching. And that's something that was just new last year, and I think it's a really good innovation that we're doing. And then also rewards. There are people who do this stuff because they think it's the most important thing on earth, like me, and probably a number of people in this room. There are others who might do it, be more likely to do the work if it was tied to some expectation or reward or something like that. And so we have changed the reward structure for faculty so that faculty have to report on their contributions to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And if they haven't made contributions, talk about a development plan of things that they will be doing and that they have done, like maybe attending workshops or doing more reading or whatever. And this is tied to raises. Okay, so not this year. This year we piloted it to just see what people would write. But next year it will be tied to faculty rewards and raises. You do not get a raise in the school just because of the cost of living. All of the raises that faculty get, if we get them, are because of merit. So this will be part of the merit score, will be contributions to diversity, equity, inclusion. And some of the stuff we look at is the student course evaluations. We look at the course outlines. We look at things they say about themselves, but we also have hard data like that we look at as well. So working on it. It's not perfect. It can always be better. It may sound a little cynical, may not ever be perfect, but I want to strive for perfection anyway. And then the last I wanted to share is just opportunities for student involvement. We really like working with students in the office. We're up on the 4th floor where hardly anyone goes. We're thinking about having a coffee hour and inviting students so they can see where we are. So we have work study positions. They are filled for the semester, but 3 of the students are graduating, and so we will have new work study positions in the winter. And so if you think you're interested in doing any of this kind of work or working on any of these kinds of projects, we'd love to hear from you. You can even talk to us now, put your name in for the winter. We have some students have done independent study projects and their own projects, either things that they want to do or things that we're working on, let's say collecting data on something or helping us to analyze data. And they could do that as an independent study, and it might even count as a substitution for a required course like 522 or 683 if it's an evaluation. We have, as I mentioned, we have a field placement. We could probably take 2 students, and that would be starting in the winter. So if you're a macro student, it's only for macro. So if you're a macro student, you're interested, and you're not in a special program that says you have to be somewhere else, think about that. I don't see any PhD students, I don't think, but we also can provide postmasters training for PhD students who want to get that postmasters practice experience. That's really important for getting a job teaching social work. We collaborate a lot with the student organizations in programming and in different activities. So if you're with a student org and you want to do something with our office, let us know. We've already talked to at least 2 about different activities. We're working with different offices and programs in the school for monthly social justice events. You're going to be hearing more about those later. But really, working, so that there will be events, discussions. We're talking about maybe doing some video viewing and discussion over a lunch hour. So if you have ideas about social justice events we should do, let us know. And then we have an online feedback form on our website, which goes to like a Google form. So if there's anything that you're concerned about, you think we should be addressing, or if there's something you want to get involved in or something you want to know about, you can fill out that form, and we check that probably at least a couple of times a week. But you can also email us. And I forgot to put my email address up here, I realized. But that will be sent to everybody. We do actually have a DEI office email address, which is on our webpage. And so anything that has to do with any of this stuff, whether you want to get involved, whether you're concerned about something, think we should get involved in it, you have a question, question about something, we are there for you as students. So thank you. Yeah. So are there any questions or comments before we move on to the next topic? Yes? You need to use your little mic thing. You don't have one? It's just for the people who aren't in the room if they're listening in.
I think it's working. Okay. So for I apologize if this is something that might be in the strategic plan document that I could maybe look up. But so the trainings and the PODS training and consulting and supervision for the faculty and staff, is that, so it's part of a reward system, but is it like required that they participate in that like incentive, I guess?
No, we haven't required that of staff or faculty. At this point, we have not had the practice ever of requiring faculty to attend any kind of training. So that would be a change in our practice. That's certainly something for the executive committee to discuss because that would affect broader things, but that has not been required. It's certainly been strongly encouraged. And actually at one of the training, we did like a half-day training on inclusive teaching. And there were some folks there who I thought, let me just say, I was very happy they were there because I had heard concerns about some of their teaching practices. So sometimes, there is this feeling that, well, only the people who really already know stuff or care about are going to be there. But sometimes it's actually, there are people who say to themselves, I really need some help with this. I'm struggling. So that does happen as well, but that has not been our practice. So we do keep track of attendance and know who's been to these things. I don't know if maybe Lynn or anyone else might want to comment on that.
Okay. I'm going to add that do fill out evaluations on every course, and those I want to let every student know those are looked at very carefully, and those are considered in the faculty members' annual review. And so several of those questions have to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion, and those are taken seriously. So while we have not, the school hasn't had a policy of mandating this training or that training, in fact, there's definitely feedback when faculty show they need improvement in certain areas from the students' perspective on the evaluation. So this is number one, to encourage you to fill out those evaluations. They are taken very seriously. And second of all, there definitely is direction to education and training and development in whatever area the faculty needs it, and that includes skills in teaching and incorporating diversity, equity, and inclusion in teaching. And even though that we should not take Lorraine's comment, even though we don't mandate, say everyone has to attend this training, the truth is the faculty attend a lot of development activities, teaching development, research development. So I think there is a strong activity base for continuous learning in the faculty as well. I don't want you to think the faculty are just sitting back and they don't care what they do and they're not working on it. That would be a mischaracterization.
Right. Yeah, Mary?
I also wanted to just, most people don't know, our faculty every year, we go through what we call an annual review. And that means that there's a peer review done by other faculty. And there's usually 3 faculty that review the student evaluations from courses, the statements that faculty members make about their development, their research, their service. And it's all tied, like we say, to our merit system. But we each receive an individual paragraph for each of our areas that we need to do. One is teaching, and that includes your advising and other aspects of teaching too. One has to do with our research or scholarship, and one has to do with our service to the school and the university. But we get individual paragraphs that give us evaluative comments that come from this review. And so those are looked at the year before to, like if I was on the executive committee and doing the review right now, I could see your review that was done the year before and to see if you made movement or not. So while it's not like mandatory that everybody moves in the same way, they are moving because they don't get any merit if they're not moving in the right directions. And we've gotten a little bit better at the evaluative pieces. 5 years ago, I wouldn't say a lot of the paragraphs about 5 years ago were just really nice. Now they're actually asking us for action. Mm-hmm. And so I think those are just a little bit of background. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to mention something also along these lines, which was last year, one thing that we do is we do look at the course evaluations. I cannot tell you how important it is for students to fill the course evaluations out. And I hear from many students that they don't do it because there's this viewpoint, no one looks at them, it doesn't make any difference. But as you have heard, people do look at them and it does make a difference. And there are courses, when you look at the evaluations, you can see there are courses where only half the students or fewer than half the students filled out the evaluation forms. So it's just like really important. But one thing that Barb and Mary and I looked at, we were looking at evaluations and we were looking at the PODS content, and we saw that content on LGBTQ plus issues was lower than the other types of PODS content that we want students to get. And so we actually then created an initiative to offer more education and training to faculty. We also spoke at the faculty meeting sharing this data with them, saying we are not doing what we're supposed to be doing in teaching students about LGBTQ plus issues in the classroom. And we have data to demonstrate that. And so I'd like here are these workshops that one was in the school, there are other workshops around campus. We expect people to participate in these. So that's another thing that we do as part of the plan is look at the evals from the students, not at the end of the year, but at the end of each semester to see, are there like things that are missing or things that have to do with DE&I that we want to address more immediately? There was sorry. Yeah, it's the part-time faculty. Yeah, so it's both full-time, part-time. Okay, there's a comment or question here, and then the other two. Yeah. Yes. Has to be green.
Does it work? Yeah, I just would like to hear a bit more about why the executive committee made any of the faculty.
I cannot answer that question personally because I was not involved in that process. The question is why we have decided not to require any particular training for faculty. Am I correct? Yeah.
Why weren't you involved? I'm just curious.
Why was I not involved? Because I was not invited to work on the plan by the people who organized it. And if you're not invited, you don't go to the party. But it wasn't a party. I was actually not upset, given the amount of work and effort that was going to go into it. And I knew that there would be places where I could go and give my input in these town hall meetings. We had like town hall, we called them town halls, but they were really working sessions. But I don't know if you want to, they're asking why I was not invited to work on the plan. Yes. That was a committee that was called not by Lynn Videcka, but by the dean we had before then. I have absolutely no idea of what the process was. I was not in the room when those decisions were made.
That was just a curiosity. But my question was.
Well, I don't think we answered her
Oh,
question.
sorry, my bad.
Her question was about why did we decide not to require faculty to take any particular courses or training workshops.
So I've been here for 2 years. I've been at Michigan for 2 years. So this is something that is a tradition, I guess I want to say. I don't know if there ever was an explicit decision one way or the other. Perhaps this is something that maybe we will entertain if people think that that is important. I know there's a petition circulating. We'll certainly, when I receive that petition, we would certainly consider it. That would be done in the executive committee. And I also want to make sure that the students all know that we do our work, all of the work of the school is done in committees. So it's very unusual that every single person is at every single meeting. And you can imagine that would be impossible. There are representatives, just like there are representatives to student government. So the fact that this work was done in a committee wasn't at all unusual. No. And the plan was discussed and voted on, supported by the entire faculty. That's how the whole faculty gets involved. That's just our governance procedure for how we do work. I do want to say to everyone, in case you don't know, the university rarely requires mandated training of everybody, of every constituency. But we are about to embark, you'll be hearing more about it soon, on mandated training to prevent sexual harassment. So that is coming down the line now. And I do want to say it's unusual for universities to mandate training beyond what's legally required for all employees. And I'm not defending it. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I am saying that you will find that in most organizations and certainly in most universities.
Right. So there are a couple of more questions, and I think we're going to have to move on to another topic. Is that correct? Yeah. Yeah, so you had a question, and then there were two back there, and it looks like you have one.
Could you clarify what efforts are being made currently body, and what thought process you went through for this current student body when you were going through admissions or diversity? Because I appreciate everyone being here, but I also know that we could work on that too. Mm-hmm.
Well, I am not directly involved in admissions. It's actually Tim Cullenback's office that handles that, and I don't know if you want to say something about it, Tim. We did do some directed outreach, for example, to historically black colleges and universities and campus visits at the institutions that are in the Atlanta area in Georgia, including Lauren going into classrooms, for example, and talking about the MSW program. We did an outreach activity for all the students from Detroit who had been admitted to the MSW program and invited them to a reception at the Charles Wright Museum of African American History to welcome them to the school. But I know that there are other efforts. I don't know if you want to add anything, Tim, because you're really your office that handles the admissions.
civics.
Okay, so there were a couple of hands up in the back. So how about you? Yeah.
So when you talk about training, Mary kind of half answered my question. Apply to Leos who do a very significant teaching.
Yes, Leos are invited to all of the training sessions. There are a number of Leo part-time lecturers who came to the Undoing Racism workshop. We also offer, I think pretty consistently all of the time, continuing education units for these training workshops because many of our Leo lecturers are licensed and they need to accrue continuing education units, and they can get them for free when they come to our training and teaching development workshops. So yes, they're involved, and they're also involved in the reward system that I described. So they have a different annual review process, but it also includes looking at their contributions to DE&I in terms of their teaching. So you've been waiting for a while. No. So which graph? The one with all the lines and the little
lines.
little
I was
writing?
wondering what the numbers on the x-axis are supposed to represent.
Right.
It's measuring progress.
Okay.
I know.
Yeah. So actually I tried to fix it. I made another version, but it didn't get into the slideshow, even though I kept trying to put it in. I'm not sure what the problem was. So 0 means, basically 1 means we didn't start it. We weren't able to start the activity. It might be due to a whole bunch of reasons, not will, but it could be we didn't have the resources or something else was going on. And there's really nothing on here that's a 1. The highest number would be 6, and you can't see it because the little screen is, I don't know, well, I guess, yeah, on yours is like that too, little screens on top of it. So 6 would be complete, so we completed our goal for the year. And then 4 is midway completed. Yeah? These are means. Yeah. Means of what? Yeah, means of, okay. This is really getting into the weeds here. So we create this, so what we do is we collect all this data. This is something my office does, Lauren and I pretty much do this, is collect all these data from various parts of the school, like admissions and all these different things I've been talking about. They send us reports. We enter it into a spreadsheet. So for each, so for each objective, like I said, there are about 2 to 5 action steps. So it would be the mean progress on the action step related to that item. Based on the data that we've collected about what's happened in the school. Yeah. So you had your hand up, I think, and then the one back there, and then I think we need to move on.
Okay, I think this is on, yeah. So this kind of goes along with the question about admissions and diversity. I'm curious to know if there are any programs specifically with your office. Do you run any programs for minority students in addition to the affinity groups that may help their retention and success here?
So do you mean current students? Our office doesn't run any programming for students like that. But if there was an interest or need for that happening, I would love to hear about it because we could figure out what office in the school might be able to offer that, or if it would make sense for our office to do that. It wasn't part of the strategic plan, so we haven't done that, but the idea was to give students more holistic support of various sorts, financial, maybe social support, tutoring, whatever it is that people might feel like they need. But if you think there's a need for maybe a more comprehensive thing or a more general thing, that's something we could consider. So if you have ideas, definitely let us know. There's one more question back there.
What does the DEI or OSS look at in terms of when you're trying to admit students, what their lived experience does to create barriers, and how do you help break down those barriers in regards to like admissions interviews and stuff like that for those of us who come from backgrounds without that cultural capital to actually succeed in those type of interviews because of the type of questions that are asked to us?
Right. Do we require interviews of applicants? Okay. I didn't think so. So, and that's one reason we might not do the interviews. I know there are other graduate programs here at the university who select not to do interviews because of the issue that you raised, because they don't want to privilege people who have the cultural capital or background to do a particular kind of interview in contrast with others who may not have that kind of knowledge or skill. So, but what I wanted to say was that the University of Michigan, because of a suit against us regarding it, of the university regarding affirmative action, which we defended and took up to the Supreme Court, has adopted what's called a holistic application review, where we look at things holistically. We look at what barriers people may have had to overcome. We look at, is this a first-gen person? We're dependent on what people tell us, but we do look at things holistically. I don't know if you want to comment more on this, Tim. So when you were referring to interviews, were you referring to admissions interviews or other types?
Yeah, because I went through an admissions interview. I was formally accepted.
Okay, so I'm not sure what our policy is about admissions interviews. Okay. So if you want to pursue this more, you could talk with me, or you could actually talk with maybe someone in OSS, like the people here or in Nishorn or some of the other folks who work in that office.
I'd like to address a couple things. One,
sure.
Interviews are, if you have a question, we found it out and offer structured also want there is a outlawed that's something that
Hey, thanks, Tim. And thank you to everyone who, Dean Videka and Dean Ruffalo and others who also help with answering some of the questions. So I'm going to turn this over to you, Barb. Are you next? Okay.
I knew I got the mic next, so I didn't raise my hand to add anything there, but I wanted just to say a couple of things in response to a couple of the questions that were asked. I love this question about admissions and sort of what we're doing to help students who don't have the benefit of the structures that exist now. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I've heard in the conversation that's been happening at the school right now hasn't just been about admissions, and I'm glad about this. It's also about how do we, once we admit students that have more diverse backgrounds, also make sure that we have an environment that's welcoming, an environment that's inclusive, an environment that works to help support folks when they're here? Because I don't think it works when we just admit a more diverse student body and then say, well, you're here now, we're changing nothing else. Does that make sense? So I'm glad that the conversations are about that, and I'm also glad that the conversations are extending beyond that. So I know that there's work to do, not just in admissions, but also when folks get here. I also wanted to speak to the questions. There were a couple of questions about required training. And so I'm an organizational person. That's my focus. I teach in the management area. And so there's some things that we know about changing organizational cultures. And some of what we know has to do with required training. And we know that required training is fine, but required training in absence of other really deep structural changes actually does nothing. So I guess I just want to say that it's important that as we think about this, we should, and I'm all for thinking about whether this is something we would want to require. Some of the other things that Dr. Gutierrez talked about in terms of changes to incentive structures and trying to incentivize the kind of wanting to make changes are the things that have longest term impact, and that's true on training around diversity, equity, and inclusion within organizations as well. So what we're really trying to do is change knowledge and change attitudes and also change behavior. And it takes large-scale structural change in order to do that. I'm scared of one-off trainings because I think it allows organizations to check a box and say, okay, we're good now, we did it, where what I think we need is something really deeper than that, and trainings can be a piece of it, but I'm really worried if we think that trainings are going to fix the problem. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay. I wanted to switch gears a little bit and talk about our new student survey. So lots of you raised your hand and said that you are new students entering into the program. So I feel a bit strange presenting it now because you're going to ask me questions and I'm going to say I don't know yet. We haven't dug into the data enough, but I wanted at least to present a couple of things that it seems like the data is telling us right away. I've been at the school for just 3 years, and in each of those 3 years, I've seen our orientation change really quite dramatically, and every time it's changed, it's been based on feedback from students. So this is an example of a time where you might feel like that, I know it was gigantic survey that y'all filled out about orientation, just goes into a black hole somewhere, but I'm in the process of digging through it, and we really do make changes based on what we see. And we know that we can't create an orientation experience that's perfect for everyone. We admitted 430 new students, and so there's nothing ever that's going to work for everyone. But we do look for trends and try to see what works best for most. So overall, the feedback about orientation was pretty positive. We had 207 people respond, so it was about half of incoming students responded to the survey. I briefly looked through the comments, and there were a lot of comments about orientation really validating your decision to become a social worker and validating your decision to come to Michigan. And so I thought that was interesting. I'd like to kind of figure out what percentage of folks said something like that. There were a lot of comments about orientation being intense and very busy. And what was funny is that some people said it in the context of it was intense and busy and we loved it. And other people said it was intense and busy and too much. So again, we've got to kind of work our way through it and figure out what we're going to do with that. We asked, as I said, a lot of questions. So a few things I wanted to just pull out. Orientation has 4 main goals. So we said, as a result of coming through orientation, did you? And then we asked 4 questions related to those goals. So one of the things we wanted to know is, did orientation help you feel more connected to this community, which is becoming your community? 89 point something percent said that, 0.4 I think percent said that you felt more connected to the social work community. You reported that you were better equipped to explore privilege, oppression, diversity, and social justice within your classrooms. 87% said that you learned one or more foundation level skill. And then 90% said that you felt more prepared to enter classes. So that kind of introduction time helped folks feel more ready to enter their classes. We used to require everyone to come to campus over the summer and go to an in-person orientation session over the summer. We heard some feedback from students over the years that that was quite a hardship to leave and come for that period of time every summer. So we built an online toolkit. So we built it last year. You were our second class to come through with that online toolkit. When we asked you what you thought of it, 96% said you found it helpful, 91% said easy to use, and 76% said you felt better, that you had a better understanding of the profession. That 76% number struck me as low originally, and then I thought, I'll bet that some advanced standing students were ones that said it didn't particularly help because maybe you already had an orientation towards social work. So that's something else that I want to kind of dig into and see who is it that is finding it helpful, more helpful than others. You also said you spent a lot of time in the toolkit. 2 to 4 hours was the biggest kind of time breakdown that you said you spent in the toolkit. Interestingly, last year, students also said they spent a lot of time in the toolkit. When we looked at the data, you actually spent less time in it than you thought you did, but I haven't looked at that for this year yet. You had the opportunity to have some course planning appointments, either in person or over the phone. 32% said you had scheduled one of those. If you did go through an in-person or over the phone planning appointment, 93% of those folks said that they found it helpful. And then I also looked really briefly at folks who had not done it, and 25% said, in hindsight, I wish that I had done it. Another 24% said, maybe, I'm not quite sure. It might have been helpful. And then some of you had to do things related to field. You were getting placed in field right away. So of those folks that had something to do with the field office, 96% said that they now understand how the field placement process works, and 97% said that the faculty in the field office was responsive to their needs during that process. 84% overall said that they were satisfied. So again, we're looking at more of this data to try to figure out what to do with it, and we're starting now to plan for next year's orientation. So we don't even get a chance to sort of take an inhale before we're thinking about what this is going to mean for next year's class and their experiences. So if you're interested in getting involved with that, I hope that you'll let us know, because we'd love to. We always have students on the planning team for orientation. So if that's something you think you'd be interested in, let me know. Questions about those numbers? Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
I might have missed it, but
Okay.
what did you say the response rate was?
There were 207 responses when I looked, so that's about half. Mm-hmm. Anything else? Okay, so Shia, you're up next.
Hello. Thank you for sitting through this. This has been a long meeting, and I'll try to go fast with my stuff. But my name is Shia Chen. I am a second-year student, 20 months. I'm community organizing and then community and social systems. And I'm on the student union, so I'm the ombuds person. If you don't know I didn't know what ombuds mean actually before I came into this position. So it basically, if you have any complaints or anything that you are not happy with about the school, like you can come to me, and I have a system of like confidentiality, and so I'll make sure that your staff, if you don't want anybody to know, like I will just talk to you. But if you want to find out any resources or talk to like Tim, talk to Mary, talk to admins, like we, the student union really have the resources for you to go through it. And I know Barb acknowledged the student union in the beginning, but I still want to point out like Christina over there, she's the vice president of student union. She does all kinds of like we have a building power conference like coming up about like anti-racism, and then it's all student led. And then Carly there, like she's the social chair, and she wants to talk a little bit about her event. Just
Real quick. And actually, I use they, them
I'm
pronouns.
so sorry. They
That's
didn't.
okay. And
I'm
so does
sorry.
Christina. That's okay. It happens. So just real quick, we're going to have a social event after this at 7:30 at Cantina just down the road. And so I might duck out a little early to head down there, but please, I'd love to see you down there. But I also recognize, I just want to say there will be alcohol present, and I recognize that that is not accessible for everyone. And so there will be several other social events throughout the semester, really trying to make sure that all various interests are taken into account. Thanks.
Yeah, definitely make sure that you go. Like, Carly, they organize all kinds of social events, and you probably get a million of emails from the student union, and we apologize for that. But do check it because that's right now. That's a way for us to communicate things about what's coming up. And so, okay, so I'm here to talk about an initiative that the school is having together with student, staff, and faculty all together. And so I do want to share a little bit about like myself when I came over. So I'm from Taiwan, and for those of you who don't know me, like if you know me, you probably already know I'm an international student here. So last year when I came over, I actually didn't know a lot of things, and I didn't know a lot of the cultures. I didn't know a lot of issues. I didn't even know what's DACA actually last year when I came in, and everything hit, and I was like, I need to like really quickly educate myself. And so I feel like if you came here without really knowing a lot of things, and then like me, like I'm international, I'm from Taiwan, and I really don't know a lot of things, but one thing that I feel like the school that I really love about is that there's so many people of different kinds of positionalities. And then, so I started to learn, so one thing about, so the pronouns, that's just one example, like in Chinese, so I grew up in the Chinese culture, and in Chinese, like we actually don't have pronouns because everything is the same pronunciation. And so I really apologize that I say that I don't know what I was thinking here. But so like there's a lot of things that I didn't really familiar with before I come here, but it didn't mean that I wasn't caring about social justice, or otherwise I wouldn't be here studying social work. And so I feel like a lot of times that we come here with our own background, and I was really passionate about cultural diversity because I learned about like different cultures, and I realized how ignorant I was within my own Asian context, like before coming to the School of Social Work. And so that's something that I hold on to so much before coming here. I was like, I'm going to fight for cultural justice. I'm going to like bring developing country up, and so that like people can really come together. And after I came here, I realized that, oh, there's so much more different types of social justice that I also care about, but I didn't know they exist. And so that's something that I feel like I really love about this school, because you are already meeting so many people from different kind of positionalities and different kind of cultures, and then different kinds of issues that they're so passionate about. And that's why we are here, because we want to learn about it, and we want to learn about how to do it together. And that is also the concept and then the meaning behind this initiative. And so Think with ECHA actually, like throughout last year, a lot of things, you might have already heard a lot of second year students telling you about like what happened last year, but a lot happened last year. And then after and another thing I love about the school is just like a lot of things happen because of the administration, like the president. A lot of things happen, but our school doesn't just let it drop. Like, from what I know about Lauren, about Barb, about Mary, about Tim, and about like Dan, everybody here is like they don't want to just let it drop. So like, how do we recognize that it doesn't work well, and how do we come together to work it out in a way that may not be the best, but like maybe a little better? And so last year, a lot of things happened, and then Decca was thinking a lot about how do we improve it. And so she and Mary talked a lot about how do we do something different. And then throughout the summer, actually a group like I was working in the Office of Global Activity, and I was also working for Mary. And then they call like a meeting with students, staff, and then faculty all together, and then just to think that, okay, what do we want to bring out in this new coming cohort, and what do we want to show them about the school, and what do we want to work together with them. And this came out. So this is an initiative that we want to unite. The reason why it's called like Unite for Social Change is because we want to unite everybody. It's not something just for the students. It's not something just for the staff, and it's not something just for faculty. It's something that students, staff, and faculty are going to come together to work toward positive social change. And so I don't know if any of you came to that first kickoff event. We have quite a few people coming, and Barb was the moderator of the panel, but like not everybody really know because we are still learning about how to give out the information about the events. But we had a kickoff event a few weeks ago about voting right and then about civic engagement. And so this is going to be a series of different things and different things that students, staff, or faculty cares about. And what is it going to be like? We don't know. And so after having our like debriefing meeting about our kickoff event, we think that we're going to turn it to students, staff, and faculty, everybody in the school. And we want anybody who is interested about doing something for social change in the school and also outside of the school to come over to this meeting and then to brainstorm together with us. Like we have all kinds of different ideas. And then another thing that I really want to say is just like I kind of sure that when I came, I really don't know anything. And then after being in the student union, after being in classes, interacting with faculty and interacting with a lot of professors, I realized that a lot of time I have my own agenda, and I thought that they don't care. And especially me being an international student, I thought that they might not understand what I'm going through, and they might not know my language, or they might not know what's going on. But a lot of time I realized that I was wrong when I really talked to them. And so I feel like if you really want to make a change, or if you really want to do something that's different, and then if you really don't like what's happening in your classes or anything that you're going through right now in the school, don't just bury it. I really encourage you, and then I know like all of us in the student union, we are here to talk to you, and we're here to direct you to the right resource. And I really encourage you to talk to any of the staff here, because from my experience here in the school, like there's no a time when I talk to them and then they turn me back, or they tell me that you're totally wrong. Like they will sit with me and then work out a plan with me, and then also think about what can we do and what can we make it better. And so that's just something that I really want to point out. And please come to this meeting if you are interested about planning it. So we're trying to plan for this something small this semester, but also in the winter semester. And we were thinking about like maybe a symposium every week about different topics, or it can be a big event that we combine a lot of resources together, or it can be just a week of events, just like very, very intense throughout the week. And so there's like different forms, and they can be very creative. And so, yeah, that's that. And I think, Barb, you want to come over and talk about the space? And then my name is still there, so I will stay for a little bit more.
Yeah, here, you stand beside me.
Okay.
Okay. So Shia wanted to say some things about social lunches, and it got me thinking about the new space in the building, which if you're new, you maybe don't recognize as new. The whole space off of the main commons area that includes a key access for MSW student-only kitchen and then a lounge. So this is a long time coming. This is one of those things that was talked about by students years ago, and finally we're seeing the fruits of something. So we just took back over that space. It's been occupied by the International Institute forever, and the School of Social Work has just kind of acquired it. And so we tried to build that space out in a way that answered some of the things that you all were saying that you wanted. One of the things we heard is that downstairs has become inundated by non-social work students. It's a great place to study. It's beautiful. It's light. And there's copy places that you can print. And so there's a lot of folks down there that are not social work students. And our students were saying, we can find space to sit and visit or study. And so this new space, we've designed it to try to discourage people who are not social work students from using it by putting no printers in it. So that's one. So they still will go downstairs. But if you're asking why are there no printers, we actually did that for you. So it was one of the things that you all asked for to try to discourage others from using it. And then you asked for a lounge area that just only MSW students could come into. And so there's going to be, I don't know if there is now, there wasn't last time I tried to go in, the card reader wasn't up yet. But it will have card reader access. And so it will just be for you. There's a fridge in it, something that you all have been asking for. So, I mean, it's expensive to buy lunch around here if you have to do that every day. So now there's a place that you can go and put your food so that you can bring lunch with you. There's microwaves in there. It's really comfy, cozy. If you haven't been in there yet, you ask for lots of outlets so that you can sit in there and study and work. And so we've tried to kind of we tried to be as responsive as we could to the things that students said they wanted. And the student union, I want to thank them because the last actually couple of student unions were really instrumental in building the plans and approving things and asking for more of the things that you all said that you wanted. So just wanted to make sure you all go check it out if you haven't yet. And know that sometimes you're going to suggest something and you might be gone, long gone by the time it actually is up and running, but we are listening and sort of adding when we can.
So yeah, adding on to that, so we have this new space that was really required by like ancestor students, like who are like generations before, and then now the school is, and the school has been working on this, but it just wasn't done until now. But all of you are getting the fruits of their advocacy. And then we also heard about students saying that, okay, we're here, and then during lunchtime, it's really hard to find, like, it's really hard, first of all, it's costly to, like, really go out to get good lunch, but if we just pack, like, frozen food, it's also not healthy. And so there's a lot of, like, complaints about that. And then not just students, but faculty and then staff, sometimes they don't really have time to get lunches during lunchtime. And so throughout the summer, the dean actually had this brilliant idea that why don't we bring vendors into the schools? And so, and that's where Lauren was talking about all the staff. I really love all the staff. If you can really like meet all the staff in the school, they're precious, they're amazing, and they really make a lot of incredible things, amazing, magical things in the school. So Jerome, who is really the person who help make the space happen. He and Mary and I and then another Candace, we like sit down and we were like, okay, so if we want to bring vendor into the school, how do we do that? And there's a lot of logistics that I didn't realize that, there's liability issues, and then the university has a lot of policies about because there's restaurants so close to the School of Social Work, so we are not able to get vendors into our school. It's not approvable by the school. So there's a lot of logistics. And then at the end, we were like, okay, if bringing vendors into the school is not a very instant result that we can do, instant solution that we can do, what can we do right now? And so the student union then started to work with the associate dean's office, and then we put together a proposal, and then we asked for funding from the dean, and the dean actually gave us the funding to do a lunch social thing. I'll go back to this chart later. So this is the lunch socials, save the dates. So we're going to have bi-weekly lunches starting from October 10th. And then those are going to be great lunches. It's not just going to be pizza is great. Pizza is wonderful, but it's not just going to be pizza. It's going to be real meal. And I'm going to show you the first meal that we're having. So the first one is going to be Chinese food. Yay. I know I'm a little biased, so I chose that as the first one. But the first one is going to be, and it's real, it's going to be an appetizer, and you will have a main dish, and you can pick either you want a vegetarian course or you want the meat option. and then there's going to be rice, and rice will be gluten-free. And so there's going to be different menus. And what's going to happen is that there's a kitchen. Actually, I didn't know it until this summer. There is a kitchen, a big kitchen, and a very well-equipped kitchen down there at the atrium. It's usually closed by the door, but that kitchen, we're going to open it up during these lunches. And then when you come, so we asked for a $5 recommended donations, just because we want to make it. I will explain about the model later, but we asked for a $5 donations, and that's actually cheaper than like if you go to a Chinese restaurant to get a real dish. But we asked for that donation, and then if you go downstairs, there will be different options on the menu, and then so you tell the people what's the menu, and then the people are going to serve you with the food, and it's recommended. And so if you don't want to pay, like don't pay, like don't do that. And then so what is the model behind it? It's actually, we're looking into the spaces that we have. And then I actually went to a global independent study this summer in the UK. And then I actually kind of tweaked or stole a little bit. They gave their model to me, their learning model. And I kind of like discussed with Mary, and then we kind of tweaked it into what really suitable for us. And so when we have this space, I'm trying to see if I don't know if I can. Don't want to click the wrong thing. So when we have the space there, food is usually the thing that bring people to the space. And then we have so many students. And a lot of times when we have events, sometimes it's just staff working behind it or providing the food. But actually, we want students to engage into the different events and different things. And so we're bringing student organizations and actual students into this collaborative. And then we're getting money support, basically, and then the space support from the administration and also the school and faculty. And when all of these three segments come together, we want the school to really engage together as a whole. And so student union, the funding, the dean actually gave the funding to the student union right now. And then the student union has been asking partners from different student organizations. So far, we got 3 to 4. And so if you're in a student organization and you really want to be a part of it, come talk to me. And so we got partners from student organizations. And then student organization and the student unions are heading all these events up. And so we're going to serve the students. But then when we get the donations, the organization, the school is not getting any money back. So the school already donated to students and the events, but then when we get the recommended donation, it's going to support the student union and support the student organizations who are actually doing a lot of like events or groundworks that they're doing. And so that's the model behind it. And then 60% of the donation that we get is going back into the food funding so that it can really roll into the next lunches that we're having. So this is totally new, and this is something that we just like thought of throughout the summer, and we don't know if that's going to happen, that's going to work out, but we're trying it, and that's something that's cool, I think. I think it's cool about the school too, like when we throw out an idea to the school and then they got excited, Mary got really excited, and then the dean got really excited too, and then so they're like, let's do it. And so we're just throwing this out, and we don't know if that's going to work, but I really want to invite all of you to join the student union and then join your student organization in this collective work together to see if we can really come to this space. And then the space is going to, Mary already asked advisors to bring your advisees to the lunches, and then faculty, staff, they're all going to be there. And so you're going to meet all different kinds of people. And we really hope that through these lunches, so all these 5 lunches in the semester, you can really get to know somebody differently from your own bubble, and then get to know a staff, get to know a faculty, and then go and sit with Barb and talk to Barb, or go and sit with Mary and then chat with Mary. That would be really, really, really cool. And so I think so that's everything that I have, and I thank you for sitting through all of these, and thank you, Justin, for bringing our whole class here. I will bring, oh, sorry, questions. I forgot about that.
Hi, thank you so much for opening up the lounge or the new kitchen space. I just have a couple quick logistics questions. Do we need to do anything to activate our cards to get into that space?
Do they have to activate their card in some way to get in?
No.
It's
Okay.
just, your card's already encoded, so you could get in
Perfect.
spaces you're approved to, and that's one.
Great. And my second quick logistics question is, what forms of payment will you accept for these lunches?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mention it. So far, we can only accept cash. Please bring cash, $5. If you want to bring more. But so far, we only accept cash, and then we're trying to work out some other option, but there's a whole lot of logistic issue from the school. Not our school, but the larger university.
Hi everyone, my name is Haley Richards. I am a 20-month MSW student and focusing on social policy and mental health. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I am your Central Student Government representative. And so I'm just going to be brief since I do have to leave. But I'm going to just tell you a little bit about what Central Student Government is and how I am here to serve you. So the Central Student Government, sorry, let me just here's some notes. So what the Central Student Government is a student organization, and there's a lot of different things that we do. But a major thing that we do is we allocate funding to student organizations. And actually, when you pay your tuition money, you actually pay $9 and some change to Central Student Government. So please utilize that funding in the future, and I'll get a little bit more into that in a second. But yeah, so that's part of what we do. We also transport hundreds of students to and from Detroit Metro Airport during the break. So like with the fall break coming up, that's one of our like major things that we do, one of our major programs. We also lead initiatives that positively change campus, and we write resolutions. I'll tell you a little bit more about resolutions in a second too. But I can help you write resolutions, and we write resolutions to make changes on the entire campus. And those are just a couple of things. So in terms of my role, what I'm required to do to be a part of the Central Student Government is attend weekly meetings at 7:30 p.m. Sometimes they go till 10 p.m., sometimes they go till 2 a.m., just depends on what we have on our agenda for the day. So those are every Tuesday, and you guys are all welcome to attend. They're open to the public. And then I also am required to attend another committee meeting. So we have different committees on the Central Student Government, like the Resolutions Committee, the Finance Committee, the Communications Committee, and there's like 7 committees. And I can attend one of those meetings, or I can attend like the student union meetings, since that's our student government meeting, and I plan to attend some of those to collaborate with the student union and make both our school a better place and as well as our entire university. So collaborating to get the word out of what the School of Social Work needs are to the entire campus. And then I also, I just kind of mentioned communicate with the School of Social Work. And then my voluntary yet integral to my role is drafting resolutions. And I mentioned, so what resolutions can do are we can allocate funding, which I talked about, or we can condemn or support an action and like of the university. So for instance, a resolution that we just recently passed is to encourage the university to assess which buildings don't have automatic lights, so environmental sustainability. And then in terms of like the allocating funding, and an example would be for the voting initiatives going on around campus, we're actually funding buses to the polls on election day. Another one, also event reminder, there's a JCPenney event this Sunday, and we're going to actually have buses going from campus to JCPenney, and there's 60% off or more of professional clothing. So get your professional clothing this Sunday. Not sure what time, but it's on the Central Student Government website and Facebook page. Thank you. 6:30 to 9. Yeah, and then a meeting with university administrators in terms of like resolutions that we want to solve and work on. And that was very brief, and there's a lot more to it, but please contact me if you have any issues, campus-wide issues. I really want to get some resolutions worked on. We can write the resolutions together. You can just bring me ideas, and I can draft the resolutions with the resolutions committee of Central Student Government. So yeah, and also there's some links I sent you earlier this week in your email. I sent to the Mass School of Social Work email address. An email with a bunch of links to Central Student Government, past resolutions, and if you want to learn more, please contact me. I really want to get some things rolling.
Not sure who to ask. Can you hear me?
No, you're good. Just talk.
Oh, so I'm not sure who to pose this question to, but one of the frustrations that I have daily here on this campus as a Black student is being lumped in with students of color. I feel like that erases my experience as a Black person, and I don't know if it's well known that some cultures of colors do hold an anti-Blackness attitude. So to even be lumped in with them in that regard, it's just like I could see why it's been problematic as far as being able to serve everyone. Well, you're not going to be able to please all of us, but in regards to making sure that we have a better experience here as Black students or as Asian students or as any students, we really shouldn't be lumped together as students of color.
Thanks, Vivian. I didn't know if there was a question in that or just something you wanted to make sure that we sort of made note of. And
like make note of, because I guess it's the town hall somewhere to put it. Yeah. Because you guys told the kitchen, and then the kitchen. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you said the kitchen is for studying, eating, and lounging.
The studying is meant to be a social gathering space. So somebody could choose to study in the kitchen if they want to, but it's meant to be a social gathering space.
I think the kitchen that I mentioned is a little different from the lunch, the new space. So the kitchen is actually closed downstairs, nearby the vending machine.
No, I'm talking about the one upstairs, the beautiful new aesthetics kitchen, because there was just recent issues in regards to students arguing over, hey, you need to be quiet because I'm trying to take a test. The other students are like, well, this is a kid, this is a social space. And just to use language, well, it's supposed to be used for everything. That's not really realistic in that regard because the space has a TV in it.
Yeah, great. Erin, do you want to say something about it?
Yeah, I just want to comment on that. My name is Erin Zimmer. I'm the Associate Director for Student Services. So we knew when this space came about that we would need to establish policy for how the students would want to utilize that. It just opened, so it's on the agenda for Friday with the Student Advisory Board meeting we just have a little slice, so it's going to be a beginning conversation, but to sort of, get voice and understand what we want that space to look like sort of collectively. Because we're going to be working with them to sort of craft policy and share that out. You're right. I think it's a tricky thing to sort of encompass all of those, but to try to look at what we hope to have with that space.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So as we constantly have new news coming up,
like this at this time of age, like when you turn on the news, there's something new, or even within our communities, there's always something new. But I was wondering about whether, I know we have like some groups here and there, and we also have a wellness room, but is there circles of care for any issue that comes up, or someone within our student body, or just like a representative to be like, I'm aware of this particular issue. Let's have a circle of care and discussion about it whenever something comes up. Because I know it's all like being collected, but then sometimes it's put somewhere and forgotten. And then some people I feel like are silenced, or they're like, oh man, I'm too nervous to bring it up myself, or something like that. So like maybe is there like an anonymous something, so somebody else, I don't know, just that.
Yeah.
And as the winter season is coming up, I'm aware of SAD, and I was wondering if there were like happy lights available, or salt lamps or something, just the beginnings of self-care, because I know we talk about self-care, but then there isn't more tangible resources that we can just be like, oh, let me just pop in over here, because not everyone wants to admit some like identity that they might have.
Okay, so I have a couple of things I want to say. I'm sure Erin has some things she wants to add, and I will probably only remember half of the things you just brought up, so you can also remind us. Okay, so in terms of current events that are happening on campus, I sort of feel like there was a time where it was like every day. And so last year, when we were feeling like this, we did a couple of things. One was we brought in, there's a unit on campus here called the Center for Research on Teaching and Learning, and they are here to make us better teachers. And so we brought them in to do a training for the faculty on how do we incorporate what's happening on campus, what's happening in the world, into our classroom spaces. And so they gave us, they created this great model that gave us options about when to sort of deeply integrate, when to at least acknowledge. And that was their best guidance, was you have to at least acknowledge that things are happening that students are also bringing with them into class. And so, that's training that we did last year and could use to continue to do, and they offer it really regularly on campus. So part of, I think, the way we deal with that is acknowledging it in classes, and ought to be as often as we can. We also have CAPS. CAPS stands for Counseling and Psychological Services. We have an embedded CAPS counselor here within the School of Social Work. So if you need to see someone, what we heard from our School of Social Work students is, because CAPS is also a field placement, students are sometimes a little hesitant to go over to CAPS to receive services. So we have a CAPS counselor here for you. And so that is another thing that we've done. And I know that she is organizing groups right now that can happen kind of throughout the semester, and is trying to think about what are the pressing issues for our students at different points in the year, and certainly middle of winter in Michigan when the sun doesn't shine for 4 months is part of what she's thinking about.
Yep, I was going to mention, her name is Megan Shaughnessy Mogill, so you can schedule an appointment, but she is definitely looking at what kind of programming, group programming can we incorporate. Also, CAPS is in a satellite site right now, the main CAPS office for the university. It's actually closer to us. It's right behind Lorch Hall by the B School. They used to have lamps for seasonal affective disorder. Hopefully those made their way there as well. We can check into that. And also Noshorn Price in our office works on sort of health and wellness issues too. So she's always a resource if students ever need some connections sort of outside to this issue about CAPS. If somebody wants a community resource, Megan does that as well. So sometimes that's not the right option for every student either.
You also asked a question about suggestions, and so the student union just at the last student advisory board meeting was talking about this very thing. Could we create some sort of a regular ongoing way to get feedback from students who maybe don't want to self-identify in that moment? So something anonymous is what they're working on. So I don't know, Christina, have you settled on anything yet? Okay. For questions? No, people are just raising hands, but we can take you next because I hadn't seen other hands first, so we can take yours, Christina. We should just leave them all on.
Yeah.
Oh, hello. Is it working? Oh, it's more of a comment. I know that's really annoying, but I guess a lot of people have been talking about the petition that went out by Student Union, and I just want to stress that, I mean, as a member of Student Union and also as an organizer, I know a petition can't change an entire climate, but it can, first of all, let people know that an issue is going on, and then also mobilize people to do more. So I just want to stress that we didn't send out a petition with the idea that suddenly that would change the entire school's social work, but we wanted to let students know what was happening and also share resources.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. I'm sorry if I made it seem like that wasn't important.
Yeah, and I do want to like add another thing about like all the feedback about like student union. We only have 7 people in the student union, and we really try to represent like the whole student body, but like the reality is that we are so limited, and sometimes we only know so much, and we really want every student to like give the student. I'm a student of color, and sometimes I do feel like the same thing, like, oh, like there's a lot of differences in different kinds of like we have a lot of differences, but how do we work it together? And we love that feedback about it. And then like we were just last week or 2 weeks ago, we were talking about having anonymous draw, and we haven't figured out where to put it, but we really want to have like some kind of anonymous box for all the students to come and then put in anything that you want to say. And so don't feel like you need to hold back about any kind of opinions or anything. Let us know, please. And
Thanks. I saw my hand back here. Yep.
Hi. My question is, so one of the things that going back to like recruitment and how we're thinking about how we're diversifying the students that get accepted to the program. So my question comes from my personal experience. So I actually benefited from the interview. So I'm thankful that I had the opportunity to get the interview, and it was something that I appreciated. And at the end, I'm thankful that I have the opportunity to be here as well. But I think one of the things for me coming from like an underserved community is that I was also accepted to the program really late. So I was accepted to the program 3 weeks before the program started. So thinking about that as well, and kind of thinking about like, what resources are we providing to those students who are admitted late? Because usually once I was admitted late, I didn't qualify for a lot of the scholarships or any funding opportunities, because by that time, most of the funding had already been distributed. So kind of thinking about that as well when we're thinking about diversifying the school of social work, like recruitment is great, but what are we also doing to make sure that those students can be successful in the program? Because the reason I heard of this school too was because of the recruitment in San Francisco as well. So I'm thankful for all of that, and I'm thankful for being here, but also it's been kind of hard as well that I had to because I wanted to be here so bad, I decided to just leave everything back home and make it come here. But it wasn't because I had the funding to do it. It was kind of something that I said, I just have to do it and figure out once I'm there. So thinking about that as well.
Thanks for saying that. I absolutely agree that that's something we need to spend some more time talking about. I don't know if you had a specific question now or you just wanted to make sure that it's on our radar. Okay. All right.
Okay, we've got it. Thank you. Thank you. If this was addressed already, I do apologize. I came in late. But one thing that I've been trying to do to be proactive is I am a student that every day that I'm not in class, I have to work. And next semester with field coming up, I'm trying to be proactive and ask the people who I need to ask, basically how can I make sure I can afford to live here and also do school and do my field placement. And I was told to worry about that next semester, and that's not a realistic situation for me. So I don't know if this has already been addressed but my main question is just what are some of the things that are already in place, if any, to make sure students who want to be here, who are willing to do the work, but also have to work to be able to provide for themselves to live here, to be able to do field and for classes in the winter semester while needing to work, and if there are not any things in place. I have lots of ideas to make that work.
Great. So I would say that lots of things are happening right now and lots of things are being talked about, and also I think we want to know what every single one of your ideas are. I know that there are some things happening out of Dean Videka's office. I know that there are some things happening out of Tim's office. Do either of you want to speak specifically about the things you're doing around the cost of education?
So you're referring to planning for the next semester, or are you really focused on the heavy load of classes, work while you have to work, and field? I don't know whether you're focusing more on there should be more part-time options, or whether you're focusing more on financial planning part of it.
It's more of a financial planning, because if I don't have the funding to be here and not work, I have to work. So if there is not funding available for me to do the program as a full-time student and not work, and so how can I do that and still work? Or, I mean, if money is going to fall out of the sky, then that would be even more ideal. But, that's not what I'm asking for. I'm trying to be realistic for the here and now, since that's coming next semester. So yes, how can, if anything, students who have to work, is it possible for us to maybe take less classes so that we can spend those 16 hours in the field and still work our part-time jobs, or just some of the different options that are available?
Yes, we have. We don't have a formal part-time program yet. That's what's in the works. But we do. We have made student-by-student accommodations for alternative, really an extended pathway through the curriculum. So you should be working with your advisor and, as needed, the Associate Dean's office to work out on those issues, and you should be doing it now. So Tim, please feel free to add whatever you want to add, and to bring additional information.
One thing I think you should consider is in this position is what we call an additional term option. And what that means is you can add an extra term onto the end of the schedule that is a 16-month or 20-month schedule or advanced standing schedule. And for that additional term, we have a grant to cover the cost of the tuition. So probably meeting with Aaron or me would be a good start, and we could kind of go through what that would look like with you, and then we would bring in your advisor, and we can talk about the financial end of that. We also have emergency aid, which might not really address what you see as a structural issue in your budget, but that's also available to students who run into an issue where they can't access Grad Plus loan aid or direct loan aid and have pressing economic needs. And so in that case, Cerise, who's back in the corner, does a lot of work with students in those kinds of situations. So certainly, if you're feeling like you need to talk out these issues and see what the options are, please come to our office. We're trying to be very flexible on that, setting up a fifth term or 6 terms in some cases, and not having you have an additional cost above the 4 terms of tuition, or 3 terms if you're an advanced standing student.
I want to encourage any student who needs to alter their curriculum to accommodate your real life, that you work with student services and your advisor to plan it all out, because to plan it out not just semester by semester, but through the entire time, because the social work curriculum is filled with prerequisites, and it's a very hierarchical curriculum, so you need to have certain knowledge before you could take advanced courses. So to think about it semester by semester and what's being offered each semester is extremely important, because not every single course is offered every single semester. And so there'll be differences depending on what concentration track you're choosing, and so on. So I think you're smart to be thinking ahead and planning holistically.
I think Cerise has one comment she wants to make about that, and then we will have some closing words.
I was just going to say, again, my name is Cerise Carrington. I'm in the Office of Student Services. As Tim mentioned, I am certainly available to meet with any student that would like to discuss financial planning, whether it be now or looking towards the future. But something else I am definitely interested in meeting with students about are things maybe that we can implement going into the future with incoming students as it relates to how we can maybe better help you financially plan for the program coming in. We've tried to implement many of things, such as the toolkit videos, having me available to meet with students, but I recognize that, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what to ask, essentially. So if there are things that I specifically could be doing as kind of a financial aid counselor in our office to help, I'm definitely open to suggestions and ideas. So.
Okay, I just have very fast from my experience. So I totally, like when I came, I didn't have the money to go into my second year, and then I actually met with Cherise, and then I met with Mary, and I told them about like my problems, and then so like from my experience, I can only speak from my experience. From my experience, I feel like the school listen to what's going on, and then Cherise, she's not like, oh no, we don't have the funding for it, but her point was let's work together and dig out what are the scholarships that I can apply for, and what are the things that I can go through, and I actually try to apply for everything that I could, and when I first came, I thought that I was the only person that didn't have enough money to go through the entire program, and then now I realize that actually a lot of people are on the same boat, and so how do we come together? And then also in the student union, we really care about this. How do we come together to find resources for everybody to finish the education?
This is actually becoming the norm, right? It's becoming the norm that students can't just come here and quit work and go to school full time. And so this school's got to figure out ways to be responsive and planful, help students plan for that the whole way along and not just be kind of last minute. I know that there are other people who want to ask questions. I want to be respectful of the time. It is 7:30. We have another town hall on November the 28th. It's actually happening over the lunch hour. It will just be 1 hour and not 2, so we'll see if we can do that. I'm thinking we'll probably be focusing on what's happening with the curricular reform at that time. I'm happy to stick around after for anyone who didn't get their questions answered or something that they wanted to just share. But I want to thank everyone for coming, and I will see you in the halls.